Greek Prime Minister and the Russian President talking on the phone. I mean, really? Is this serious?
Basically, in recent years, you've had obviously deteriorating relationships between the European Union, the United States, and Russia, East and West. It culminated very much in the Ukraine conflict, which continues now. So as a result, it's a very sensitive issue for Europe and the US, for the West, Russia. So from his perspective, from Tsipras's perspective, he's trying to use whatever leverage, limited leverage as he has, to try to play off saying that I have another option beyond Europe. The reality of the situation is that between Greece and Russia, there have been historical ties ranging from Greek Orthodoxy to ties between the Soviet Union and the Greek Communist parties. Many of those members still form part of the coalition of the current Prime Minister. But the reality is, once again, is that you don't see this ability. They don't have the leverage necessary. Russia is very limited in what it can do because it's confronted with the war in the eastern Ukraine. It's confronted with heavy sanctions from the European Union, and in addition to that, it also, I would say, is that the last thing it wants to do is complicate its situation even more, particularly when you have the low price of oil.
Because, I mean, we heard some of the speeches in the Greek Parliament today, and people on both sides of the debate are saying that this argument about when money is repaid and the price Greece pays in terms of austerity, it really goes to the core of Greece's place in the European Union. So to suddenly turn to Russia really would be the nuclear option. Basically,
it goes beyond economics. It's threatening a geopolitical shift to the east if Greece were to exit the euro, and that would also imply not an exit from the European Union, but if it would exit the euro, it would reduce it to rogue status within Europe. And once it reduces that rogue status, it would start to play its cards differently. This is the theory behind it. And obviously, implied in that also is the threat to exit from NATO. And many within Tsipras's party, up until the recent past, were calling for Greece to exit NATO, and this causes huge concern with the United States. So in this, it's a very complicated situation. It's a combination, just not economics, but geopolitics also.
Now, Greece did actually have the money to repay the IMF this time around. Why did it choose not to?
The bottom line is it's trying to buy more time. Right now he's confronted, Tsipras is confronted with dissension within his own party, particularly from the far left of his own party. And the last thing he wants to do is leave power. Remember, there's a government that came into power making many promises. When people who come from the fringes of politics and common politicians will often say whatever it takes to get into power. Once they're in power, they'll do whatever it takes to stay in power. So I think we see a perfect example here is that he's trying to shuffle between the far left of his own party, dissent there, and also dealing with the European Union. Up till a couple of days ago, he was saying that there was a solution was in sight. And then today he winds up saying that what was offered on the table was absurd. So he's doing a language of doublespeak also. That reflects this shifting in situation.
I mean, he has got a lot of plates spinning, as you say. He's trying to satisfy domestic concerns and pay the bills.
His deadline was June 5th today. The reality is that he's now going to take an extra 30 days till the end of the month to bundle all of his payments. The last time a country did this with the IMF was Zambia in Africa during the 1980s. So it shows you that the desperate state that Greece is in right now. If he manages to make a deal by the end of the month, in my opinion, it'll be only a temporary deal. It buys him more time, a few more months. Unless he's going to make a long-term solution to the current situation, you'll see a constant process, a game of brinksmanship being played over and over.
I mean, I'm sure we all know the feeling of payment deadlines being missed, but this is different because there is really a risk of Greece leaving the euro, or at least that's what we hear, or is this just another false alarm?
Even beyond leaving the euro is complete bankruptcy. I mean, this tranche of 7.2 billion euros was supposed to have arrived in the autumn, more than 6 months ago. Greece has been living and surviving on basically what's in the till right now, and there's very little left in the till. It won't carry it till the end of the month. So unless he can implement the pension reforms, the labor reforms, and an increase in VAT as being demanded by a united troika this time, IMF, European Central Bank, and the European Commission, unless he can come up and meet their terms, it's going to be very difficult to see how Greece is going to survive. It runs out of money.
And what about, finally, this threat to take the decision to the electorate, hold a snap election or hold a referendum? Again, is that a risk he's willing to take, do you think?
The question is time. You need time to organize an election. If that election winds up, it takes a few weeks. So if he wants to organize this election, they may not be, by the time the election happens, the country may be bankrupt. So in that sense, the high risk, he's playing a high-stakes game. And the question is he fully prepared to deal with the consequences? My opinion is you have political amateurs playing a high-risk game and not learning on the job, not realizing the extent to what they're dealing with. And once again, they're just learning on the job. It's a critical time. And are these people prepared to deal with it? Big question mark. In my opinion, they haven't shown the ability or the professionalism to do so. They've had since late January of 2015, since they won the election, to come to the table to deal and negotiate seriously. And most of it's been a waste of time.
OK, Marco Vicenzino, we'll see you at the next Greek debt crisis. Thanks very much for your
Thank you.
analysis tonight.